Right. What's the trees?
Oh, he dropped him.
You like coffee? You like coffee?
Hey, how you doing?
I was here before, I had to go out. It's really cold in class.
It's really cold in class, or
Yeah,
yeah, I try to change the temperature, but it won't let me.
no, it's only the management that can. What
Yeah.
do you call your hair?
What do I call my hair?
What's it called?
Twist?
Okay,
Yeah. Why?
nothing.
It's twist. You that cold?
Yeah,
You want my jacket? Here. I want you to get hypothermia, okay? Here.
I can't think when I'm cold.
I know, okay, put that on. I'm the same way. Yeah, I'm the same way.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You
I
can't,
promise I'll return it.
yeah, I was saying, you can't take it home, okay? It looks good on you, but you can't take it home.
Thank you.
All right. Um.
This one's right. This one.
So you traveled for Thanksgiving?
I went to Mammoth.
I know you did.
How you
That's
know?
why you didn't want to be in class. Because of both times.
Oh, no. I was here.
Oh,
I was here Monday. No, I didn't leave till what, Thursday morning.
oh, you just didn't want to see us. I'll tell the
No,
rest of
I was
the
giving
class.
you guys a break for me.
I don't have a life, so. I-
You might be the only one that was like, oh, everybody else was happy, I'm sure. Not to see Dr.
That's why I didn't vote, because if figured if I vote, people would hit me in the pants. If I say, yeah, we will have 100 pounds for
It doesn't matter. They wouldn't see your vote. You could have sent it anonymous.
that. There is nothing anonymous.
Oh.
And I came to California for the weather.
Tricks on you, huh? Jokes on you. A lot of people don't think California is cold. It's cold even here.
Did I tell you I was playing bingo at work? That they tell you to do like random things and take pictures and send it.
No,
And you win a gift every week. And then after 4 weeks, there's a draw. And then the winner gets $50,000.
50,000?
Yeah, but 10 people have to win. The first 10 people win every week. So I won the first week. That was when I went to lift weights that I said I went to the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah, then the second week I had to like eat food with different colors, different weird things, go to the park. So this week I had to go send a Christmas card to somebody outside in a different state.
Mhm.
So I did that, and then I was supposed to have eggnog and take a picture. So I've done all that. So this is my final week. I really hope I win. But you have to win 4 straight weeks to get in the draw.
To be considered, yeah.
Now we have
For a
5 left.
straight week?
4 straight weeks.
So who, and you,
4. I won the last 3 weeks.
oh, you love,
4
okay.
other people won the last 3 weeks.
Oh, so one of you guys,
5.
so how do they determine the winner of each week?
They do a draw. Well, you're not teaching me anything to let me know if. No.
I don't know the rest of the variables involved in that. How many
If you get the
people,
winning ball, and
it just,
the old man is gonna pick it, and I don't know if he has a try to.
that just,
So I can't-
that's random sampling, okay? You all have the same chance of getting picked for week 4 as anybody else. One up. There you go. What's that? 20%?
I really hope I win. Maybe I should pull the race card. I'm the only black person.
don't think that's gonna help you any, okay?
You know, back home, race doesn't matter, but here, I just try to like.
Use it to your advantage. Oh, God.
I'm sorry, am I a bad person?
No, you're not a bad person, okay? You might be opportunistic, but
Yeah.
um,
When my boss asked me to do stuff I don't want to do, I'm like, oh, I really am not familiar with that.
they'd be like, okay, well, get familiar with it. Yeah. Oh, Jesus. Where do you work at?
I work in a nonprofit.
Where?
It's in Florida, but I work remotely.
Okay, what's it called? What?
Cross Catholic organization.
Huh, all right, how'd you get that job?
It's not a Catholic organization, it just has the backing of the Pope and Vatican.
Yeah,
Backing, like verbal backing, not like.
yeah, not actual financial paper, yeah.
I applied.
Okay,
I'm a nonprofit major, so
okay, interesting.
my thesis is going to be on blockchain.
Yeah.
Technology in nonprofit.
I remember, it seemed very interesting.
Yes, blockchain is interesting. I just wish I was smart enough.
It's a very complicated field.
Blockchain.
Yeah.
No, I'm just focusing on the fact that it's a ledger and it can promote transparency for people that are raising funds in nonprofit. Like,
The blockchain itself, the theory behind it, like a lot of people don't. It's not easy to pick up, to understand, like, for you it is, but for other people, think of that being like statistics for other people.
oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, that would be hard.
exactly, right? It comes easy to you with blockchain, but some people think blockchain, they're like, I have no idea what that means. You start talking about mining and how the chain connects and the
Cryptography.
it's just very difficult.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whenever I say Bitcoin, people are like, oh, yeah, I know it. So like, it's not Bitcoin.
That it's cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is a type of crypto.
And yeah, it's the
Yeah.
easiest way to say it.
No, I'm saying you know that. I know that, but most people, they hear Bitcoin, they think Bitcoin is crypto. They think it's that, oh, when you want to talk about crypto, you say Bitcoin. I know, it's just another coin. It's the coin.
My mom told somebody that I'm working on NFT.
Hey,
I'm not even gonna bother.
Eddie, she didn't say you were involved with FTX, so you're okay.
Oh, yeah, the guy.
Yeah, it's not good.
A lot of people that lost money.
A lot of people lost money. It's gonna be some big problems. Big problems. I was 5:30.
But all the crypto I have, I'm just gonna hold on to it.
Yeah, I don't all mine. I have Ripple, I got Shiba,
I've got like
8.
30 types.
I have 10. I have 10
You
different
have
coins.
self-control.
Yeah, I don't buy all the coins. Even though they're pretty cheap. I just don't buy them because a lot of them don't have any utility. Like they haven't established any utility. What's the fun, like
No, some of them, I earn them. I do NFTs, but I
Uh-huh.
draw and I sell.
Okay.
People pay me.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
really?
how I got some.
Okay, good.
When I don't have money, I do stuff on the side.
Mhm. Hey, we all do stuff on the side, okay? Let nobody fool you. Everybody got a side hustle. Now, whether it's good or not is another story. All right.
Why is there no one here, even online?
I don't know.
And I hate feeling too serious. It makes me feel bad.
Don't feel serious. Move's sick. He has the flu.
Oh,
So
we were
he's-
supposed to meet today.
Yeah, so he said he's gonna show up on Zoom, but I haven't seen him yet. And then everybody else is, where everybody else is, I don't know. Joshua's usually late, so well,
Nothing new there.
nothing new. And Nikki's always late too. And Maram. She's sometimes late, sometimes she doesn't come. And that's about it.
I'm not gonna come next week though.
Okay, why?
I leave here 2 months and leave in Oregon 2 months. If I stay those extra 2 weeks,
Mm.
I would have to pay another $900.
Um,
I don't think your class is worth an extra $450. I'm sorry.
Don't mind me, you already paid your tuition.
No, what I mean is like.
I know what you mean, yeah, it's not worth it to stay just for 2 classes or extra, or 2 classes, yeah. 'Cause you
And
make
then-
7 and 8, huh?
Yeah, then I have to pay for my flights by myself, but
Yeah.
if I go this week, my company will pay for the flight. And my hotel.
Hey, smart economic financial decision,
Yes, I'm very stingy that way.
that's okay. Your money, what's up, Mo?
Hey. Can you hear me? So,
I'm doing well, thank
Are you feel sick? Are you wearing a kimono?
no, it's I'm sick, so I'm letting myself go a little bit, putting on some light clothes.
I'm sorry.
I need the one that made me sick.
It's all right.
I'm trying to make you laugh.
That's what you don't want to make me sick.
No. Who is my partner in crime?
Who looks like you look like you have a bathrobe on, Mo.
Yeah, that's why.
It's not bathrobe. It's a Chinese traditional.
Yeah, no,
I guess
no, I'm not-
coat.
Yeah,
Like a
It's like a
geisha,
sweater.
right?
it's not like a geisha.
Not like a, come on. This
Yeah.
is a Japanese thing.
You know Elizabeth's gonna poke and prod.
I'm sorry, I have 6 brothers. I turned out bad.
You turn out bad. Got some brothers, that's all. Brothers?
Yeah, 6 brothers.
You know how to handle yourself.
Mm.
That's all.
Yeah, the only one,
No, I have sisters, but we abandoned them in the church.
Jesus. Anyway, all right. Hopefully everybody's had a good Thanksgiving. I know you don't really celebrate that, but enjoy the day off and, whatever else went on, okay? All right, any questions before we start on anything? No? Okay, good. All right, so today we're gonna work on hypothesis testing, okay? So this is the bread and butter of statistics, all right? This is what statistics is used for the most part, when we're testing hypotheses, which you guys are gonna be doing, shortly, when you start your own dissertation process, right? You're gonna have a hypothesis, you're gonna have research questions, things that that you're interested in. And then once you get your research questions kind of formulated, then you're gonna think about, okay, what do I think about this particular topic, right? Is it true? Is it false? Do I think the sky is blue? Do I think that, economics, is rigged? Do I think that, I can solve world poverty? Whatever the case may be, right? Now you have your hypothesis. The point is now I have to prove my hypothesis, all right? Statistically, I just can't anecdotally say, well, Joshua told me this, Elizabeth told me that, Moo told me that. And so I'm taking all these stories and I have no proof, right? I have no numbers, okay? Numbers justify or not justify, rationalize everything, okay? You have the numbers, you have the data to prove your point. Okay, cool, no problem. You've done some research. If you have no data, this is also okay, but it's just taken as anecdotal, right? It's just an experience someone had. The experience cannot be generalized to everyone else, all right? And so we have to do some hypothesis testing, okay? So first thing about hypothesis testing is you gotta have a hypothesis, okay? And your hypothesis is your statement, whether or not you believe a certain thing is happening or not happening, whatever the case may be, okay? So some examples, the mean speed of automobiles passing mile force 150 is 68 miles, right? The mean cost remodel kitchen is 20,000. These are all hypotheses. These are all things that, someone is thinking about is saying in light of them having to do renovations to their kitchen, in light of them maybe going down the highway, to go someplace, right? But are they true is the question, okay? Is that necessarily a fact? Now, this one, the first one is pretty easy. Well, not pretty easy, but you can track it based on your data, right? And kind of as you're driving, you can see people driving the same speed as you, less speed than you, faster than you, that kind of thing, right? Same thing, mean cost remodel kitchen. Your kitchen can cost 15,000, the other kitchen can cost 50,000, right? There's different variables that go into that, all right? And so we have to kind of figure out, okay, what makes sense, all right? So as it says, hypothesis testing is to verify the validity of a statement about a population parameter. When we say the word parameter, we're talking about characteristic of the population or characteristics of the sample, right? So parameter normally goes with population. Right? So if I say population parameter, come on in.
Hi.
If I say population parameter, I'm talking about the characteristics of the population. If I say sample statistics or statistics of the sample, I'm talking about the sample and those characteristics of the sample. The easiest way to remember how they go, they both start with P, population parameter, statistics, and sample and statistics, okay? They're characteristics of each one, okay? So here we have our little process here of how to do hypothesis testing, right? Now, when you actually go in and you start doing your research, you're not gonna really think about this process. You're just kind of gonna do it. All right, you're gonna think about your research questions, which you guys already kind of formulated in your head about what you want to research for your, your final dissertation, even for the final paper or project here in this class, right? Got an idea about what you want to talk about. Then what you're gonna do, you're gonna state your null and alternative hypothesis, all right? So your null hypothesis is what you think, okay? I think I'm gonna get an A in this class, right? Or the average grade in this class is, 90, okay? The alternative hypothesis is that the average grade in this class is not 90, okay? And so the way you go about writing your hypothesis is the format of null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis, right? The two go together, right? So there's one hypothesis and they both have these two parts to it, okay? All right, so then you have to select your level of significance. At what level do you want to prove or scrutinize the data, okay? Yes,
So which one is your original hypothesis, the null or the alternative?
the null is the original, and we'll get into that more. So basically, the notation is like this, all right? You got HO, that's your null. You got H1, that's your alternative. Okay? All right, so HO is your null, H1 is your alternative. All right, so then you can have multiple hypotheses. This is your first hypothesis. You can have another one if you want. Same thing, HO, H1, or you can have 2, 3, 4 different hypotheses.
How do you separate the null?
Huh? Good job.
On the same statement?
Yeah, you can have more than one hypothesis on the same research question.
I know. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
You
So-
put, two.
Yeah,
one,
so-
two,
yeah, so here you can have, I think I know what you're talking about, right? So you can have this hypothesis and your first hypothesis, okay? And then you have another hypothesis 2, right? And what is that, and then what is the alternative? So this is just this right here is one hypothesis,
Okay, I got it.
okay? So 2 makes 1. But within the hypothesis, you have your null and you have your alternative. Okay, but this is the notation for it, but that's one hypothesis. Then down here, I have hypothesis 2,
Two. And you have none.
I have my null, and I have mine. Okay. But you can't have, it's the way it's the kind of the way you state it, right? So let's just say you have your null, you can have hypothesis 1, right? You can have hypothesis 2, you can have hypothesis 3, you can have hypothesis 4. Okay, you can list them this way, and then you're gonna go to the other side, and you're gonna have the alternatives. Okay, so it'll be this way, it'll say H1 alternative, H2 alternative, H3 alternative.
So this
So-
depend on, the number of, precise questions? or-
Yes, it depends, well, so yes and no, right? So your research question can be multi-layered, it can be very complex and deep, but doesn't necessarily mean your hypothesis or what you think about it is the same, right? So you may say, okay, I want to know about, let's just say blockchain, right? The average blockchain user, invest, I don't know, $2 million into Bitcoin, whatever the case may be, right? So that can be your research question is you want to know what's the average, or do people that understand Bitcoin technology, or I mean, not Bitcoin, blockchain technology, do they invest more into the market than those that don't, right? Your hypothesis is that they do, okay? But your research question is one thing, right? Your hypothesis is something else. Your research question is what the overall overarching thought or concept that you're looking to prove, right? To help you, kind of have this question in your mind, you need answers, right? Your hypothesis is what you think the outcome is going to be. Okay. After you've done your research.
But the research question will not be one.
No.
It's going
Oh,
to
yeah,
be
you can have many research questions you want. Yeah, you can have this 3 research question 1, RQ2, RQ3, on and on and on, right? You can have as many research questions you want. But for every research question, you're gonna have at least one hypothesis. You're gonna have one hypothesis that has a null, and has an alternative, right? When I'm chair for my DPA students or my doctoral students, I try to limit the number of research questions you do. That way it limits the number of hypotheses you have. That way it limits how much statistics you need to do. Okay, so you gotta remember, as you're doing your doctorate, you're not here to save the world. You're not here to reinvent the wheel. The best thing I can tell anyone is to get your research question, maybe 1 or 2, and then keep it simple. Don't go too deep. When you get your doctorate and your doctor or whatever, you can go do as much research as you want. But through the dissertation process, we want to keep it as easy as possible because you just want to get through it, right? It's just a matter of, it's a formality, really. Procedural formality. We just want to see if you can do research. Can you prove or disprove your point? Doesn't matter if your hypothesis is right or wrong. That's not what we're looking for. We're trying to see if you understand the scientific method. Can you follow this protocol? All right. And can you write about it in an articulate manner? Right? Can you say, well, I thought it was this, but you know what? It turns out the data doesn't support that. This is what the data support. This is what I found. So contrary to what I thought in my hypothesis, the data showed me this. So I have to go with this. I have to go with the alternative. Okay. All right. So you select your level of significance. Remember we talked about level of significance probably last week last week, right? We had,
I was sorry, I don't want to take you back, but I
No,
was
go ahead.
gonna ask you a question, but
Yes.
just shut that something.
no.
So how do you differentiate between the H0, the null of one research question from the other when they're both named H0, H0?
Because the research, the hypothesis will be associated to that particular research question.
Oh, so you write them together?
Not necessarily. You're not gonna write them together, right? So you may have your research question at the beginning, right? But then in your methodology, in your chapter 3, you'll have, your hypothesis, whatever it is, right? And you don't actually, well, yes, you do. All right. So you write your no, and you write your alternative, right? But then normally you can tell which question they're related to. All right. So you're gonna make sure that the way you write your hypothesis, you can tell which question is related to. Right. So if I ask a question about, the blockchain, or you can have research question that one research question and have multiple hypotheses to it, right? There's no you don't have to directly correlate it to that, right? The hypothesis testing is so because you have this research question, but you may have multiple thoughts on it, right? And you're trying to say maybe, blockchain technology, they understand it. I think they invest $10,000, right? And then the next hypothesis could be, well, I think if they have blockchain technology or they understand blockchain technology, they are also middle-aged or college educated. That's the second hypothesis, right? But they're all associated with the same research question, right? So it doesn't matter, you don't have to tie in the hypothesis to a specific research question, right? You should, all your hypotheses should be tied to a research question, but not being specifically okay, that's what it is. Because you may have just one research question and have 5 or 6 hypotheses. Or you could have 4 or 5 different research questions and 1 hypothesis. You understand what I'm saying? So, but if that hypothesis can encompass all the things you're looking for and answer your question, based on the data, then you're fine. But typically, you try to keep it specific as you can, as far as research question, hypothesis, research question, hypothesis, right? But you can have multiple of each. There's no limit. And they don't necessarily need to be assigned directly to each one. But when you write them in your paper, you're gonna list your research questions, and then you'll have another section where you list all your hypotheses. Okay? And you don't need to list when you're writing it, you don't need to list the alternative, because it's understood that your hypothesis is this, so we're gonna say the alternative is the opposite of whatever your hypothesis is. Okay, so but you'll get more of that as you go into research methods and that kind of thing. Okay. All right. So you select your level of significance, right? And we talked about level of significance about 0.05, 0.01, and then 0.1. Okay. These are all different levels of significance. Okay. This one here, 0.05, is the one that we most commonly use for research. Okay. And basically it's saying that at this level here, like I said, anything below 0.05 will be considered statistically significant. And we're going to tie this back up to our bell curve. Okay. All right. Remember that underneath this whole curve is 1. Okay. So these tails here, all right, these tails. So this whole thing is 95%. This is 2.5. This is 2.5. Okay. So if my data falls within this range here, right, I know it's 95%. I'm not worried about it. It's not statistically significant. That means that it occurred by chance. God did it. Who knows? It is what it is. But if it falls here in my 2.5 area, this is where it's statistically significant, okay, in the tails. Now, 2.5 to 2.5, excuse me, not 2.5, 0.25, excuse me. 0.205. No, that's right. Yes, right. Excuse me. That was right. They get a different. Either way, it's the same thing. 2.5, 2.5. I'm trying to get you to understand where the 0.5, 0.05 comes from, right? Because it's symmetrical, 2.5 on this side, 2.5 on that side. Don't forget this whole thing is 100. You have 95% here already in the middle, so there's only 5% left. So you have to split it amongst the two sides, right? 2.5, 2.5, but when you take 5% and you convert it to a decimal, it gives you 0.05. Okay, so that's why that's statistically significant, because it's outside of the normal parameters, right? Because remember, this is a -1, is 1, this is 2, it's -2. These are our standard deviations. Remember that? Okay, this is the mean, right? Our starting point, always. And then everything going this way is less than the mean. Everything going this way is above the mean. Okay. And so you got to remember that once it hits this point here and here, right? This is all normal. Once it gets past 2 standard deviations, now we're in the realm of, hey, this is abnormal. Okay. This is not occur by chance. Something we're doing or something that was done made this happen. Okay. Now we're just trying to figure out, do we understand it enough to understand the variables that make it happen? All right. So once we get to the statistical significance, then we can say, oh, we'll do more research on it because there's something there to look at. But if it falls in here, 95%, there's nothing to look at because we're never going to be able really to say, come on, we're never going to be able to say with certainty that we know what caused it to happen. So we're not even going to mess with it because it could be an infinite amount of things that can make something happen. Okay. So once it gets to these tails, we know something's up, right? Because it's so far away from the average, right, that something must be going on, okay? And so the way that we establish whether or not to do more research is to figure out, is it statistically significant, okay? So as an example, anybody familiar with Weight Watchers? No, Atkins. Let's go with Atkins. Anybody familiar with Atkins? Okay, Weight Watchers? No? Anybody, Weight Watchers, you know the program, you lose weight, Oprah, no, none of that? Okay. So Weight Watchers.
Like
Atkins,
Oprah, the actress,
Oprah, the actress, whatever, sports, I mean,
you get
sports.
a TV.
Yeah, you get a TV, you get a car, you get a nothing, all right, whatever you get, right? So, all right, so either way, Atkins, and what you call Weight Watchers. These are two programs in the United States that promote a certain type of eating. Okay, Atkins is a high fat, high protein diet, no carbs, right? Weight Watchers is a little different, it's a little more balanced with points and that kind of thing, right? So when these two programs first started back in the 50s and 60s, right? People were losing weight, okay? But think about it this way. If you're trying to lose weight, okay, and I give you a program and I say, hey, in 1 year, you're gonna lose 10 pounds. How does that sound to you?
Easy,
Easy? Does it sound like an effective weight loss program?
yeah, it is.
Wait.
1 year, 10 pounds.
Is
You
it,
get to
is it,
think
is
yourself-
it an effective weight loss program? Is it effective? Is the
Based on the
question.
things you said,
Yes, is it effective?
Yeah,
Yes, it is effective. Is it efficient?
no,
No, it's not efficient, right?
Yeah.
So it's statistically significant because it works, right? But do I need to do any more research into it because it's not efficient? Yes, I need to do more research because I want to get it better. But if I was somebody that was just kind of curious about the program and I saw it and I said, hey, you lose 10 pounds in a year, I use 10 pounds in a week, right? So why would I use this program? You see what I'm saying? Helps people make decisions, but just because it's effective doesn't mean it's efficient. All right, so it may be statistically significant, but it may not be anything I want to look at. You see what I'm saying?
but how do you
Oh.
determine that?
Well, you determine, well, it depends on what kind of research you're doing, right? So Atkins, Dr. Atkins, named after him, all right, he was trying to build this program to help people lose weight. And he realized that, yes, the program is statistically significant, right? But it's not efficient, it's slow, right? But he knew it worked. So, but he knew it worked because of the stats, because he knew it fell in the tails. So what he decided to do was he had to figure out which variables do I need to tweak to make it work better, right? Okay, so instead of saying, you eat protein, once a day, you can have 2 meals now, and let's see what happens. Okay, well, we have 3 meals, so he tweaked it till he got it to where it was still significant, but it worked faster. It was more efficient. But the only reason he knew it worked is because he had to use the data to calculate whether or not it was significant or not. Okay, so just because something is significant, statistically significant, doesn't necessarily mean that I want to look into it. Okay, do I really care about? There's some things you just don't care about. Okay, they may be very useful in certain applications, but for the most part, they're useless. Okay, and I don't need to really delve into it any more. Does it matter how many times I chew my food? From a personal perspective, does it matter to you? It's a question. Does it matter to you?
If you have GRD, does.
Well, that's something. Yeah, if you have GERD, that's something different, right? It might matter to you then, right? But for the most part, you don't care how many times you walk in and out this door. Do you? I don't care about that, okay? Now, it may be important to someone else, maybe the guy who fixes the door, maybe the guy who makes the door, they might be curious in that kind of data, but I don't care. So it might be significant, but it's of no importance to me. There's no value to me. So why would I do any research into it, right?
Basically, you are saying interest.
Yes, that's what it is. It's your interest, right? But you need to know whether or not there's any value in your interest. Okay? Just because I'm interested in something doesn't necessarily mean there's any significance to it. It's stupid. Right? Not stupid, but it's just not, it's kind of trying to compare, like A lot of people have great ideas, but is your idea valuable to anybody else? Can you sell your idea? Can you make money off of your idea? All right, it's like art. Art is very subjective. Some people like that picture back there. All right, it's worthless to us. Okay, look at that picture in about, I don't know, 500 years. I bet you'd be worth something. All right,
I don't think so.
well,
Time is not gonna make this better.
time will make it better. Time makes everything more valuable. Yeah. Time makes everything more valuable. Why does time make everything more valuable?
Because tomorrow you may not have the same.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You may not have the same thing tomorrow, right? Think about when Michelangelo or Picasso or Degas, all of these artists painted their portraits, right? Have you ever heard any artist being rich
In their lifetime.
in their lifetime? No,
They are, yes.
they're dead, they're poor. When they die, they're poor. Van Gogh, poor. Picasso, well, Picasso was all right? But Da Vinci was, because he did other things. Michelangelo kind of was all right, but for the most part, they don't die rich. Okay, you know why? Because at the moment, currently, there's no value to it. The value is in the person, right? You make like NFTs, right? Anybody familiar with NFTs? Non-fungible tokens, somewhat. Yeah, I know Moo is, all right? But the value is in what the person thinks the value is individually, okay? So you may have something where you're researching it, but especially for you, for DBAs, all right? You're gonna be practitioners. I'm not a practitioner, right? I have a PhD. I'm not a practitioner. I'm a researcher. Can I be a practitioner? Sure, I can practice it. But you guys are the ones that are going out to the field, to the environment, to the organization, the companies. They're gonna hire you because you're a practitioner, right? You're active in the community, you're active in the organization and trying to enhance and increase the processes that they have, right? Increase productivity. They're gonna have an issue like, hey, we have a problem with turnover. We need you to do an analysis on what's going on with the turnover. That's the question, that's the type of stuff you're gonna get. Yeah, employee turnover, right? Well, when it comes to customers, it's called a churn. All right, so you may have that project and your boss will say, all right, have at it, here you go. And you go, roger that, and you take it with you and you go and you start your project, you start your research, okay? And then you're gonna have to tell him or her like, yeah, you know what? It's just average. Everybody turns over because they're bored, they just wanna leave, whatever the case may be. Or you could tell them, hey, you know what it is? The managers suck. There's a consensus that says, hey, it's statistically significant, and I can tell you what the reasons are, right? That's going more into regression and all that stuff, but at the same time, it's the same premise on how to get there, right? I can tell you that, the employees have said that the managers are not very friendly, the work hours aren't great, Now we have contributing factors and variables that have been proven by the research that contribute to our turnover. Now we'll make decisions on how to fix those things. All right, that's how decisions are made. All right. So we got our level of significance, right? 0.05 is the commonly used one for research. 0.01 really is used in pharmaceuticals and more very kind of life sciences type fields, right? Things that are going to affect you, that you're going to either ingest or put on your skin.
FDA.
FDA, yes, this is the kind of, this level, because I'm basically saying, I want to make sure I'm 99% sure, as close to 100 as I can get, to saying, yes, these results are significant, okay? 0.10 is kind of a little more loose, right? It's 90%, okay? And it's saying, yeah, to a certain degree, I'm 90% confident that this stuff is okay, okay? So the wider your range, right? This 99%, it encompasses more of the population. That's why it is certain the level's higher. Because if I'm testing at a 99% or 0.01, it's very stringent. I'm trying to like see everything. I'm trying to make sure I capture everything. This is a little more, loose, more flexible, giving me more room to kind of like, okay, not totally 100%, but I'm close, right? This one is like, I just want to get an idea of what's going on, right? If you're 90%, so I have a notion of kind of where things are trending per se, right? But you have to be careful with not using 90, or 0.10, because you don't want to, you want to use 0.05 or 0.01, right? You want it to be as stringent as possible. You want to make sure you can say with this percent certainty about the research you're doing is at this level. Yes.
So does the sample size matter?
Yeah, sample size definitely matters. Okay, especially after we talked the central limit theorem last
No.
week.
Because like so you said in research 0.05, that's 5%, and the other one is 1%, the other one is 10%.
95%.
Yeah, it's 95%.
It's 95.
It's 5%, but what you're saying is
I'm
that,
saying the other side.
yeah, oh, this side here?
Yeah.
Yeah, these
So-
two together, 5%, yeah.
So if the sample population is 100,000,
Mhm.
and compared to like the other one that is 90% and is 1 million, is the level of significance more relevant, even if it's the same percentage, but a bigger sample size?
Good question. Okay, so. Yes, it'd be more. Not that it would be more stringent, but it definitely would give it more credence, yes. Because again, let's just say we're doing a test at the 99% level, right? But it's only 50 people, right? Or 50, data points, right? And I'm doing it at 0.1, but I have 100,000 data points. I have more data, right? Which is gonna give more instances of whatever I'm trying to look at. So yes, this would probably be looked at a little bit better as far as like, okay, having more validity, right? But at the same time, this one would still be fine. It'd be okay, right? Because we understand what we're testing at, but having the bigger sample size definitely gives you an advantage. The problem that you're gonna run into that you have to make sure that you have down solid is that your data is good. Okay, data is everything in research. Bad data, bad results. Okay, garbage in, garbage out. So that's really the key. You could have 100 data points, but if they're trash, it doesn't matter. Okay, so you have to keep that in mind about how you collect your data, where you collect it, what time you collect it, the medium in which you collect it, right? Are you doing online surveys? Are you doing in-person surveys? Are you doing it, whatever other means, right? Through social media, right? A lot of people do social media research, right? They collect their data that way. Are you using secondary data, right? Because your field, whatever you're looking at, is very, very hard. There's not a lot of research out there, and so using secondary data because you can't necessarily do the primary data yourself. Okay, so good question though. All right. So now we identify the test statistic. All right, depending on the test that we're using, right? Depending on the statistical analysis we're using. If we're using a t-test, z-score, F distribution, chi-square, all these different test statistics depend on what it is you're looking for and what it is you have. All right. So last week we were doing the confidence intervals, right? Depending on if we had the population standard deviation, or if we didn't, we would use the z-score or we use the t-distribution. All right. If we didn't have the known population standard deviation, we use the t-distribution. Okay. And Mo, I'm going to use you as an example real quick. Okay.
His dress?
No, not his dress. No. Mo sent me an email about one of the questions that he had on the quiz. Right. Mo, you don't mind if I talk about that, right?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So you got one of the questions wrong. Okay. And it was a simple mistake. He didn't read it all the way through, and he used the z-score instead of a t distribution. Because the information that was given to him was one thing, but what they wanted was the population mean, okay? So he read, all the data was sampled, but the question they were asking about was about the population, right? So those things you have to be careful about. But you remember that because the sample and the population have the same characteristics based on the central limit theorem, right? Then you can use them interchangeably, right? If I have this sample mean as a sample standard deviation, then I can use that as the population mean and the population standard deviation. Okay, but I have to know which test to use in order to use that I have. Okay, so he used the z-score, he's used the t-score. Just a minor difference. He used 2.75, 2.5, and 2.757 or something like that. I can't remember what it was. And then, but it was supposed to be 2.33 or something like that. Okay, use the wrong table. Oh, that didn't work. So you have to be careful and cognizant of what they're asking for and identify the test statistic that make the most sense for what it is you're trying to research. All right. And I'm kind of going through this very quickly, but you're going to get all this, if you haven't taken it already, research methods. Okay. Research methods goes to quantitative and qualitative research approaches, and you should get that and get this whole hypothesis testing till you're blue in the face and you can't take anymore. Okay. You formulate a decision rule. Okay. So basically your formulate decision rule is picking one of these. Okay. The 0.05, 0.01, 0.10. Okay. And you can pick any, you could pick 0.20, you could pick 0.15. It doesn't matter, right? These are just the established kind of ones that we use for different, testing that have been, kind of commonly used, right? But you can use anything you want, any number you want. All right. So then take a sample, arrive at a decision, and then interpret the results, right? This is where we get into the inferential statistics. All right. Now I'm using the data. We're going to analyze the data statistically, and then we're going to need to make assumptions or inferences about the data based on our results. Okay, based on the test. Now we're going to figure out, does the data tell us that our data is statistically significant? And thus that ties back in to our research question. Okay, it ties back into our hypothesis. All right. So if I'm statistically significant, right, and I prove my hypothesis to be true, okay, my hypothesis, whatever it is, I prove that, yeah, it's statistically significant. Now I can go back to my research question and say, well, since my hypothesis is true, right, how does that relate to my research question? Right, and that's how you kind of answer those things. And the research question is very general in nature. It's very broad, and you want it to be specific, but it's going to be specific and broad at the same time. Kind of weird to understand right now, but
Different from the problem statement.
Different from the problem statement. Yeah, different from the problem statement. Right, the problem statement is your kind of like your overall worldly, I guess, assumption about what's really at the root of the problem. Right, the world is, predominantly poor. Okay, how can I solve world hunger? That's your problem statement. There's not enough food in the world. Okay,
Automate everybody.
what's that? No, we're not automating everybody.
Turn everybody into machines.
Oh, Lord have mercy. You still need some sort of energy. What are you gonna use? Lithium batteries?
The sun,
The sun? Jesus.
and some you put them on nickel cadmium, and then you put some on lithium, but some don't really function.
Oh, Lord.
You asked the question.
Yeah, no, I did. My mistake. I was wrong, Liz. I was wrong. Then you interpret the results, okay? All right. Move on here. All right, so as I said before, state the null hypothesis HO, alternative hypothesis H1, okay? Null hypothesis statement about the value of population parameter developed for the purpose of testing numerical evidence, right? Then alternative is a statement as accepted the sample data provides sufficient evidence that the null hypothesis is false, right? So the only time you accept either one is after you disprove another one. right? So if you disprove the null, right? Then you will accept the alternative. Okay? If you prove the null, then you will accept the null and leave the alternative alone. Okay? My hypothesis is that the average height of the class is 5 feet. My alternative is that the average height of the class is not 5 feet. I do some research, kind of find out that average height of the class is 5'5". Okay, so I reject the null, accept the alternative. Okay, you're not saying that the alternative is 100% correct. You're saying that the null is definitely wrong. You see what I'm saying? You're not saying the alternative is right. You're just saying you know that the null is wrong. Because that's what you've proven. All right? Remember that question I asked about the dogs first week?
Three-legged dog.
How do you prove that every dog, every dog has 4 legs or something, all right? What's up?
Anytime I'm classic.
A dog, you start looking up. Start looking at a dog with 3 legs. Oh, so it's easier to disprove an hypothesis than it is to prove it. Again, going back to the fact that we cannot talk to every dog or see every dog there is that exists in the world, right? But all I have to do is find one dog that doesn't have 4 legs, and I'm good. Okay, even if it has 3.5 legs, I disproved the null. So I have to accept the alternative. Okay, that there's some other thing out there. All right, but this is how you use it. Okay, and so you will either have equal to, less than or greater than equal to, or less than equal to. Okay, as your hypothesis moderator or operator, excuse me, operator. Okay, so all right. So okay, the alternative never includes the equal sign, right? So the null will always be the equal. The alternative will always be the not equal. Okay, so if you say, so the trick with the hypothesis is this. When you read your, whatever it is you're trying to do. When you're reading whatever it is you're trying to do, right? Just like the question I had, right? My null hypothesis is that the mean of the class is equal to 5 feet, okay? My alternative will be the mean of the class is not equal to 5 feet, okay? So when you state your hypothesis, you have to look at the question and what it's asking. So if you're looking at the question that says equal or not equal, right? Or if there's a change, right? Then it's going to be equal. But if it tells you or asks you, like, for instance, I think that the mean height of the class is greater than 5. Okay? Less than 5. Okay? So now I have it less than or equal to 5. My alternative is that it's not. That the mean of it is less than 5 feet. Okay? Up here I'm saying it's greater than. My alternative automatically has to be less than.
So which
Or nothing.
But you said the result was 5.5 and that you were gonna go with the alternative because the null is wrong. But how can you say it's less than and then say that you go with the alternative since the null was wrong?
Oh no, well, let's just say after we do the research, our average is 5.5, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if average is 5.5, what am I gonna do here? Because if I state that my null
More than 5.
more than 5, right?
So the null is correct.
The null, so I accept the null.
So no
And I
open
reject
room for approximation. whether less or equal to.
Right.
Almost at this point.
Yeah.
Well, alternative is saying no completely.
Or no, it doesn't say no completely, it can be less than or equal to.
But that's the statement there, that's.
No,
the
but yeah,
statement there says, alternative hypothesis never includes the equal sign.
no, yeah, just the equal sign by itself. Like, it can have that, that's not equal, but it can't have this, it can't have equal.
Oh,
Your alternative will never equal anything. Because your alternative goes to this, of your hypothesis, right, your null, okay? Whatever your null is, your alternative will always be the opposite. In theory, in writing, in just how you think about it. Okay, so you'll never have equal sign down here. You can have an equal sign up here, but you'll have a not equal down here because it's not, because the alternative is that it's not equal to whatever mean I'm looking at. All right. What I'm trying to get you to understand is that there are different tests, and we'll get into them, right? There's a one-tail test and there's two-tail test. Okay, and the way you deal with that is by understanding what the question is posing. If I say, hey, is the average equal to 5 feet or 5'5", right? That is a two-tail test. Because I'm not giving you a direction. But if I say, hey, I think that the average height of the class is less than 5 feet, I'm giving you a direction. I'm telling you what I'm looking for. I'm telling you what I think is gonna happen in my hypothesis, right? So that's a one-tail test. And so when we look at this again, right? And don't forget, these are the tails, right? One tail, okay? So this is my mean, and I'm saying that the average height is below, I think that the average height of the class is below the, whatever, 5 feet, whatever. I'm giving you a direction that I want to go in. I'm telling you that it's less than here. So that's one-tailed. Same thing if I say it's above, it's still one-tailed, right? Because it's going in one direction. But if I say equal, I'm leaving it open because I don't care if it goes below it or above it. I just know that it's not, I'm saying specifically that it equals this. If it doesn't equal that, then what is it? Below or above? But I'm giving myself room to cover this whole thing. Okay, so it's two-tailed because I'm accounting for both sides, above, below, and above the mean. Okay, and we'll get into it. We'll try to. Right? But I want you to understand when you're looking at the questions, how do I state my hypothesis statements? How do I pose my hypothesis statements? Okay. All right, so the null hypothesis always includes the equal sign, okay? So don't read, I see what you're saying, Joshua, don't read like the equal sign just being this. Because it's not, okay? This is also the equal sign, this is also the equal sign, okay? Here, alternative hypothesis never equals the equal sign because you can't, because it's already up here. Right, you already stated what you think. So your alternative is always gonna be not equal, it's gonna be, less than or greater than, okay? So at least if it says, less than or equal to, okay, then it's gonna be now, it's gonna be greater than or equal to. Right, so the alternative is always the opposite of the null. Right? So it's important when you're writing this stuff down, when you state your null and alternative hypothesis, that it's done clear because that will give you the direction on which statistical tool to use. Because if it's one-tailed, you're gonna do one thing. If it's two-tailed, you will do something else. Okay? Yes, I know. So much fun. All right. Okay, so now step 2 of the process, right? You select the level of significance, okay? So now we look at the level of significance. The probability of rejecting the null hypothesis when it is true. Again, we go back to our bell curve and, okay, right here, the tails, okay? When we have, 2 here, and then we have -2 here, Okay, and our standing ovation. Excuse me, don't forget 95% is under here. 2.5 on each side of the tails. All right. You combine these two together, gives you the remainder of the 5%, which equates to the 0.05. All right, and this little thing, this little half infinity, okay? All right, it's called your alpha. Okay, this is your alpha, your significance level is the name that they, but it's called an alpha or type 1 error. Okay, type 1 error. But just know that this is the alpha. When you see this little thing here, they're asking you for the level of significance. Okay, or they're giving it to you. All right, so it could be alpha is that, alpha is 0.01, your alpha could be, again, 0.1. Okay, that's your level of significance. But it goes directly back to your bell curve and understanding that, hey, 95% is within, 2 standing deviations, and then anything past that, you have your remainder 5%, 2.5 on each side. All right. Okay. I can tell we're not gonna get through all this today. We'll see. All right. So we got our significance level. All right. All right. So as I said, can be any value between 0 and 1. Like I told you, you can pick whatever you want, right? But these are customarily what we use, right? Traditionally, like I said, 0.05 research projects, 0.01 quality assurance, right? And then 0.1 political polling, right? Things of that nature, right? It's not specifically attached to those things, but just in that particular realm, you want to use those particular significance levels. All right, so type 1 error, okay, like I said, rejecting the null hypothesis when it is true, and then type 2 error is not rejecting the null when it is false, okay? So as a researcher, as you start getting your results, you have to understand or know, like, okay, how much can I trust my results? Okay, that's really what you're telling people. Like, I trust my results at the 0.05 level. I trust them at the 0.1 level or at the 0.01 level. Okay, but what you're really saying, as I said before, is that type 1 error, which is your alpha, right, is when you reject the null, okay, but it's true. Okay, when you say, hey, I'm rejecting the null, but it's actually the true answer. It's actually correct. Okay, so let's just say that, again, let's go back to the height thing. Average height of the class is 5'5", but I think that it's 5 feet. Okay, it comes back that it's actually 5'5" or it's 5'4". Okay, but I say, you know what? I'm still gonna say my null is correct. I think it's 5 feet, and that's what I'm gonna roll with. All right. I just made a type 1 error. This is what you're doing anyway, right? Yeah, I just made a type 1 error because I rejected the null, right? Actually, I accepted the null. Can you take that back? Let me see. How do I do it? If I say that, let's just say I accept the alternative. Better yet, I accept the alternative, right? So again, the class height is 5'5". I say it's HO at 5 feet, and the alternative is not 5 feet. Okay, so let me write it out so they're easier to understand. All right. Average class height is 5'5" after we done our research. Okay, my HO is that it's equal to height is equal to 5 feet. My alternative is that it's not equal to 5 feet. Okay, so my type 1 error would be if I rejected the null, okay, when it is true. Okay, so I would say this is wrong, and I would take this instead. Okay, but I'm using a bad example. Dang it. Give me a minute. Let me get through it, and because I want to make sure you understand what we're doing, because as you do the type 1 error, it's it's kind of like inherent of doing the statistics itself. If you understand what I'm saying, like you're doing this is part of the problem solving. This happens, this is just what it is. Type 1 error is the alpha. Right? If you say I want to do it at 0.05 signals level, you're just saying, hey, I'm using 0.05, that's my type 1 error. That's the risk I'm willing to assume. Okay, that my null hypothesis is gonna be, within 95% certainty or 5% or 2.5% certainty. Okay, so you say, hey, I'm gonna reject the null, even if it's true. Okay, that's the mistake you're making. Still confused? Yes, a little bit. Okay.
The reason that it's hard for me to get
Mhm.
is because in one sentence, you're saying the words true, you're saying error.
Yeah,
It's kind of like.
it's hard, I know
messing with
too.
my mind.
So the type 1 error is just the name. Okay? That at the end of the day, it just kind of, it goes back to what it actually is. Because variance, standard deviation is just an error. Right? So if I have an established point here, right? The difference between my reference point, my starting point, and here, these are two different points. These are errors, these are variances, they vary, right? So from here to here is an error, from here to here is an error. It's not a bad thing. It's just a difference that I recognize between the mean in point A and the mean in point B. The error is not a bad thing. It just, I'm telling you that this is the level of risk, or this is the buffer I'm giving myself just in case, to you to understand, like, okay, it falls within this range. Because when we're doing the confidence interval, right, and we had the mean and then we put plus or minus, it's the same thing. It's an error, right? I'm giving myself room. Plus or minus 2. Okay, so if I say the mean is 5.5, right, and I give myself 2 inches as an error, right, 5.5 plus or minus 2 inches is the average height of the class. Okay, but it's gonna give my range, right? I'm gonna get 7.5 to 3.5. Okay, but this 2 right here is my error, my standard error. Okay, same thing, type 1. It's just they call it an error, but it's just really the difference, okay, between the mean, because the mean is the center of the universe in statistics. So anything that's not close to the mean or deviates from the mean is considered an error, because the mean is established. Okay, the mean is established, it's not going anywhere. Joshua's 6'1", 6 whatever it is. He's not gonna get any shorter right now, right? When he gets older, maybe, right? But he's 6'1". There's no denying that. Now, everybody else below Josh's height is whatever it is, but it's an error because we're comparing it to Josh's height. Okay, you could be the mean in the reference point, and then whatever difference it is from your height to anybody else's height is the error. Right? So don't get caught up on the actual literal word, or the actual literal meaning of error, right? That's not, it's not a bad thing. It's just kind of determining or distinguishing what it is we're looking at. If you make a type 1 error, you're saying that you're going to say the null is wrong, okay? But when you make that type of mistake, it's actually that the null is correct, but you're accepting not to accept it. So you made a type 1 error. Type 2 error is when you not rejected the null when it is false. Okay, so if I make a type 2 error, I'll say, yes, the null is true when it's not true. Okay, so that's the difference in error. But you typically don't necessarily bring it up because it causes this confusion for people. They see type 1 error, they see alpha, they're like, wait a minute, error is bad. It's not, the standard error or the standard variance, the standard deviation, right? The buffer I've given myself to kind of the range, I can create a range for myself. Because you're never gonna be able to specifically pinpoint. I may say Josh is 6'1", and he is, but I can't always say that with certainty. Some days Josh may be taller, right? Because he let his hair grow out, or he has different shoes on, or his socks, or it could be a number of things, right? So Josh is never actually gonna be ever 6'1". Josh may be 6'1", 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He's continuous, right? Just like your weight. Remember that question I asked you about your weight? Week 1, how much do you weigh? And I think I asked Joshua. And Joshua said, I weigh 170 something, Joshua, right? And I said, well, that's not true. Well, Joshua said, yes, it is true. I said, well, I don't think so, right? I think that's truncated. Basically, we cut it to make it understandable, but Josh's weight is continuous, just like all of our weights are continuous, because as I'm moving right now, I'm losing weight because I'm expending energy. When I walked into class, I was 174. I'm probably still 174, but more likely I'm 173.9999537. You know what I'm saying? Okay, it's continuous. It's going. It just goes on and on and on and on, right? It's not finite in nature. So when you look at type 1 and type 2, just understand that the alpha is your significance level, okay? And the type 2 error is the beta, okay? But for the purpose of this class, don't worry too much about the beta and computing that and all that stuff. Just understand what it is, okay? Understand that it's not rejecting the null when it is actually false, okay? I state something as the null, and I accept it as the truth, but it's not, it's wrong, okay? Type 1, the opposite. I reject the null, but it's actually true, right? So now instead of accepting the null, I accept the alternative, but the alternative, I haven't proven it right, right? Or I haven't disproved the alternative, the null, I should say, okay? Kind of sort of get it, fuzzy, a little muddy, I know, okay? But you have to understand when you're looking at the hypothesis, what it is you're trying to figure out, okay? What time is it? All right, take a quick 5-minute break. We're not even a quarter of the way through yet. I'm gonna have to continue this next week. All right, take a 5-minute break if you need it. If you don't need a break, good? Okay, Elizabeth, good? You can go if you need to go.
I need a break.
You need a break? All right, Ricky, take a break. Okay, 5 minutes. All right? Take 5 minutes and come back. No, not Ricky. It was not Josh, it was Ricky. It was the Zoom world. He's in the ether, okay? Take 5 minutes, come back. All right, and then we gotta wait for Ricky. Come back. No pressure, Ricky. Let me see. So while we're on a break, let me try to see if we can explain this a little better. All right. Okay. So as you're looking at your type 1 error, right? You have your alpha, right? Be 0.01, 0.05, or 0.10, right? That's your significance level. And that's your threshold for deciding whether or not something is statistically significant and whether or not you want to look at it. Okay. So the lower the higher the significance level, as far as like the 0.1 point, the more loops you are, the less stringent, I should say. Okay. So again, 0.01, most stringent. Okay. 0.05, kind of just in the middle, but acceptable. Okay. 0.10, least stringent. Okay, so like I said before, this is the one we use for the most part. Okay, and just remember that again. Boom, 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 2, 2, 0, whatever. Okay. And so if I make a type 1 error, okay, I'm gonna say that I'm gonna accept here, all right? I'm gonna reject here. Although I know that this is correct, right? But for whatever reason, the data is making me point a different way. Okay, even though the numbers may come out statistically significant, all right, for whatever reason, I'm deciding that that's what it is, right?
So when your results is saying you should reject what you have said,
Right,
that is type 1.
yes,
So
yes,
your result is saying you should accept even though you should reject.
right, that's type 2, yes, right? But you are doing type 1, when you do your statistics, once you pick a level, you are now looking for type 1, you're doing a type 1 type error process, sort of, right? Once you pick your level, okay? And just say we pick 0.01, all right? What you're gonna be looking for is type 1 errors. That's the fear that we have. We have a fear that we're gonna make a type 1 error, but the type 1 error, right, that we make, we're saying that, hey, now I'm 99% confident that I did the right thing. Here, if I happen to fall in this category here, right, that means it's gonna be statistically significant. That's my 1% chance of getting it wrong. Okay, that's my 1% chance of getting it wrong. That's basically what I'm saying. Is that at this level here, I'm saying that I'm 99% sure that I'm not gonna make a type 1 error. But there's a 1% chance that I may make a type 1 error. Okay. But if this happens to become statistically significant, I just have to make sure that I did everything right, I'm good to go. And that, hey, it's statistically significant and I can move on with more research. Right? You don't move on to look into things a little more in depth unless it's significant. If it's not statistically significant, then again, there's nothing to look at. All right. There's a good study, it's more anecdotal, I guess, but there's always a question. Anybody familiar with Michael Jordan? Right? Anybody who knows Michael Jordan, the basketball player?
Yeah.
Right? Anybody know Michael Jordan? Okay. So Michael Jordan's parents, his dad is, I think, 5'6", 5'5", his mother's 5'2", 5'3", I think. All right. Michael Jordan is 6'6", 6'7". Right. So it was funny in the documentary. They were like, well, where'd you get the height from? And he's like, well, when I was younger, I wanted to be tall. And I knew my parents weren't tall, but his grandfather was tall, but he knew, like, I wasn't tall. So he used to hang upside down. So he thought it would make him taller. Okay. And so they're like, that's an interesting concept to think if you hang upside down when you're younger, that it can impact your height. Now, is that true or not? Is that true?
No.
You
I
sure?
don't know.
Don't know, right? I have no idea. But it's a concept that's taken on a form of its own, right? You guys have seen those machines that they sell on infomercials and all that stuff to make you hang upside down, right? Decompression machines. You never seen those before? Where they have the machines and then you see people hanging upside down. It helps with blood flow, helps with decompression of the spine, all this stuff, right? So Michael Jordan apparently was doing this before it became popular, okay? So he didn't realize that when he was doing that, what he was doing was kind of relieving pressure off his spine, okay? And you understand how your spine works? Anybody understands that? Well, medical folks understand how the spine works with the disc and how the disc flatten and that kind of thing, right? When astronauts go out into space and they come back, you know they're shorter, right? In fact, when astronauts go into space, let's just say astronaut is 6'5" before he leaves to go to space. When he comes back, he might be 6'3". Because of the gravity compressing the disc in the spine, it shrinks it. It's like a spring. Okay. So of course we didn't know that. I mean, they may have known that back in the day. I'm sure they knew that, right? Michael Jordan didn't know that. Okay, he was just speaking anecdotally. He was just speaking his own experience. He had no idea what he was doing. It may have not contributed to his height. Might have been a factor, but not the factor. All right. So the concept of hanging upside down, right? People do it all the time because it helps with blood flow. It takes pressure off the spine, right? Helps to decompress the disc, all this other stuff, right? The point I'm trying to make is that if I'm doing that type of research, I'm going to use this most stringent level of significance because I want to make sure that the highest level possible that what I'm finding is statistically significant. Okay, the results I'm getting from my data, when I get them, if they fall in these tails, then I know with 99% certainty that, hey, something is going on. I didn't have my chance. Okay. All right. Ricky, you back?
Yes, Professor, I'm back.
Okay, cool. All right, let's get rolling. All right. So step 3, select the test statistic. Okay, depending on what's given to you, you're going to select which statistical analysis you're going to use. All right. So in hypothesis testing for the mean, right? When the standard deviation, the population standard deviation is known, the test statistic Z is computed with the following formula. Now, key in on the important things, right? When the population standard deviation is known. Okay, that's telling me that I have the population information, so I'm going to use a Z-score as my test statistic. Okay, and you can tell, right? Testing a mean with a known standard deviation. And if you ever have any questions, I always say refer back to the slides and look for the category because it'll tell you exactly like, hey, this is the test for this. This is a test for that, right? Depending on which information you have, it'll tell you specifically what the test is for. Okay. So for us, we have the population standard deviation, right? The error, the standard error, okay, same thing, all right? Z equals sample mean minus the population mean divided by the population standard deviation divided by the square root of n. Okay, and that will give you your Z statistic, right? Once you get your Z, you establish your critical value. Okay, you establish your critical value or your range. Okay, remember the confidence interval, once we got our range, right? We got our range. And so once we looked at the mean, anything that fell within this range, we were like, okay, cool. It's normal, but the mean is within this range. Okay. These are our critical values. These are our boundaries. All right. This is what you have to do with the Z-score. You are setting your boundaries, your critical values. Okay. So now determine whether the distance between the standard, sample mean and the population mean is significant by finding the number of standard deviations, sample means from the population mean. Okay. Again, notice what they're saying. Determine the distance between the sample mean and the population mean. All right. So what we're doing is we're comparing the population mean to our sample means. Okay. So let's just say we have this population here, the cup, and we take this sample here from the cup. This is sample 1 cup, sample 2 cup. Okay. Now, these two in theory should have the same standard deviation as this. Okay. But we need to test that. So that's how we're doing it this way. All right. But we're using the Z-score because I want to know now if I'm going to compare them, the way I can tell that they're in the same team from the same population, right, is that I look at the standard deviations. How far away is this sample mean from the population mean? How far away is this sample mean from the population, right? 2 samples from the same population, right? But I want to compare them, all right? Well, let's just do 1 sample because we'll get to 2 samples later, all right? But let's just say 1 sample, boom. I'm just trying to figure out this sample mean as compared to the population mean. Okay, and that is my error. Okay, but the way I do it, the way I'm looking at it for this perspective, for this particular instance, is I'm using the standard deviations as my measurement, as my metric. All right, so is this particular sample one standard deviation away, right? The sample means is it one standard deviation away? Is it 2 standard deviations away? Is it 3 standard deviations away? How far different are the means? Okay, because it should be the same, but I have to prove it, right? This is how I do it. So testing the mean, no standard deviation, use this formula, right? So you formulate your decision rule, okay? Specific condition when null hypothesis rejected, condition when it's not rejected, all right? Regional area defines the location of all values are either so large or small that the probability of occurrence under a true null hypothesis remote, okay? So let's go back here. Critical value, okay, so, all right, so now it's talking about the critical value, right? About picking your level of significance, okay? Your level of significance directly correlates to your critical value, okay? So here it says that the alpha, right, the type 1 error is equal to 0.05, which is also the same thing as saying the significance level is 0.05, okay? Now, if you remember last week, you go to 0.05 is a one-tailed test, all right? So I'm going to my stats books today because it has all my stuff in the back, okay? So I go to the Z table back here. There we go. I go to my Z table, okay? This is a comprehensive Z table. You should have one in your book. You should be able to pull it up online, all this good stuff. And it says that it's a one-tailed test and it's at the 0.05 level. Okay, so now, because I'm looking at only one side, right? Because it says one-tailed. Remember, I told you, if you're looking at both sides, right, it's two-tailed. If you're looking at just one side, it's one-tailed. And the way you know that it's one-tailed, two-tailed is by the operator. It's either going to be equal or less than or greater than. Okay, if it's either one of these less than or greater than, okay, it's going to be one-tailed. If it's an equal, it's going to be two-tailed. Because I'm saying I don't care about the change. I'm saying that the height is equal to 6 feet. Okay, the average height is equal to 6 feet. Now, when I do the calculations, it could be less than 6 feet. It could be more than 6 feet. I don't care. I just know that it's not 6 feet. Right? So I want to kind of know everything. I kind of want to see the below and I want to see the above. But if I use one of these, less than or greater than, I'm saying I want to see which one is which. Is the average height less than 6 feet or is the average height greater than 6 feet? So I'm pointing in a direction. You see what I'm saying? So if I'm pointing in a direction, it's one-tailed because I'm only concerned about whether or not it's above the mean or I'm concerned with whether it's below the mean. All right, but if I put equal, I'm concerned about it in general, how it's changing. All right, so we go to 0.05, and because it's one-tailed, right, we have to look at 0.05 subtracted from 1, which is the whole thing underneath here, right? 0.95 is my probability that I do not reject null. Okay, 0.95 is my probability that I'm not going to reject the null when it's right. Okay, so then I go to the book, to my Z table, and I look for 0.95. And if you look at 0.95 on your Z table, it will say 1.645. And because it's so commonly used, they actually put it down here, right? But if you didn't have that information down here, you'd have to come into the body of the Z table and look for 0.95. And when you look for 0.95, it ends up right here where the asterisk is there. I'll pass the book around so you can see it, all right? But look for 0.95 underneath the in the table, okay? And you'll see where the 1 point, where you get your critical values from, right? So the critical values and the significance level tie in together, okay? So don't forget, if it's one tail, you take the significance level and you subtract that from one. And then you go to the Z table. If it's two-tailed, you don't have to do that. You just go straight to that significance level and look for whatever critical values it gives you with the Z score. Okay? So for our one tail here, we have 1.645. So that means that here we look 95.95, 1.645 is our critical level. So if once we do our Z score based on our data, right? If it's below 1.645, then we are going to accept the null. But if it's here in this 0.05 area, we're going to reject the null and accept the alternative. Because the data is telling us like it's here. It's beyond our critical level. Okay? Based on our level of significance that we choose. Because it could be, we could have picked 0.1 as our significance level. Okay? And this critical value would change based on what's correlated to 0.1 or 0.9 on the table, and this becomes our critical level. Now we're going to go into actually doing the calculations based on the formula we saw before. Now we need to calculate the Z score based on our data. Now all we did was establish parameters. That's all we did, based on how stringent we wanted to be. Did we want to be super stringent, okay, or just kind of loose with it? Okay. Once you figure that out on how stringent you want to be as a researcher, then you establish your criteria, your parameters, right? Once you establish your parameters, then you go back to the data and say, okay, now what is the data showing me? All right, let me do all the calculations based on the data. And then once I see the calculations based on the data, I come back here and I compare the two. Okay, because this is an established criteria here. Okay, now I need to figure out, once I do the Z score, does it fall here or does it fall here? Okay, so let's do this. Boom. Step 5, make a decision. Step 6, interpret the results. All right, let's go through an example. All right. So here's one tail and two tail test, right? This is an example. So as you can see here, left tail, right tail. You see how they just use greater than or equal signs, right? That's how you know it's a one tail test. If they use equal, then you know it's a two tail test. Okay, because I don't care. I just know that I need it specifically to be equal to a certain thing. If it's not, then is it below or is it above, right? I want to know. But sometimes I know specifically what I'm looking for, right? If I'm doing cancer research and I need, or I'm doing, I don't know, what kind of research do we do in the medical field that's interesting? Cancer, yeah. So let's just do, what does cancer look like? Do they look at the cells and
Yeah, like oncology.
yeah, what's the metric that they use? Like, I know like the T cell count and the white blood cell counts, is that something that they use in cancer?
For like HIV.
Okay, so let's say that, right?
Yes.
So let's just say, the null hypothesis that if your T cell count is greater than 1,000, I don't know what it is.
Like 400.
400, it's greater than 400, then you have your HIV positive, right? And the alternative would be that if it's less than 400, then,
If it's less than, it's
Right.
positive.
right,
That's
right?
it.
But you wouldn't put that in there. You would just state less than 400, greater than 400. And that'd be it, okay? Because that's leading to your research question, your hypothesis, that kind of thing, right? But as far as, putting down the actual writing it down, we only need to just figure out if it's less than, greater than, or equal. That's it, all right? So if it's left tail, you know that we're dealing with less than or equal, greater than, excuse me, right, on the null, but we're looking at if it's less than the mean, okay? If it's right tail, same thing. We're looking at if it's greater than the critical value, but also less than the mean. All right, or below the mean, I should say less than, below. Let me not use that word. It's gonna be critical when it comes to regression. All right, but if I'm looking at the two tail test, I'm just looking at the whole range across the board, right? So the most important part of our hypothesis testing is really figuring out what your significance level is, right? Your type 1 error, whatever standard error, whatever your significance level is, that's fine, it doesn't matter. But now you have to go find the critical value that's correlated to that significance level. And then that becomes your measuring stick as to whether or not what you're looking at is statistically significant or not. Because it doesn't matter, right? Because these are both tails, right? If it falls to the left of here in the tail, it's significant. If it falls to the right of here on the tail, it's significant. If it falls in the middle here, it's not significant, right? But you do not reject the null. Okay, you don't reject the null. You accept the alternative, right? You accept the alternative here, but in here you don't reject the null. Or you can, to make it easy, you can say I accept the null. Okay, if it falls in here, so if the critical value, once we calculate all the numbers, falls between negative 1.96 and 1.96, we don't reject the null. But if it falls anywhere in these areas here, we reject the null and accept the alternative. Okay, because these are alternatives. Alternative. Right? This alternative is below the mean. This one's above the mean. Okay. All right. All right, so let's see. All right, so an example. Jamestown Steel Company manufactures and assembles desk. All right. The weekly production of the model desk follows a normal distribution of 200. There's a meaning of 200 and a standard deviation of 16. New production methods have been introduced. Vice President of Manufacturing would like to investigate whether there has been a change in weekly production of the model A325. Is the mean number of desks produced different from 200 at the 0.1 significance level? Okay. So what they're asking for is the mean number of desks produced different from 200? Notice it didn't say, is it below 200? Is it above 200? It just says, is it different? Once you hear it's different, then you know it's two-tailed, and you just use the equal sign. Okay? So now we have our null. Our null is the mean is equal to 200, okay, because that's what we have here, right? Our alternative automatically becomes not equal to 200. Right? Okay, so now we select the significance level here. It says 0.01 significance level, okay? And since it's two-tailed, right? We're going to say 0.01, right? Subtract it from 1, gives us 0.99. We go to our table. We find the z-score that correlates to 0.99, and then we write it down, okay? This test statistic, an example, we'll use z, okay? And the reason we're using z is because we know the population standard deviation. Okay, it's critical that you understand that. You have to look at what they give you, because we could have an unknown population standard deviation. In that case, we'd use the t-distribution. Okay, so we got all this, we're good to go. All right, now you formulate decision rules by first determining the critical values of z, right? So do me a favor, Nikki. Oh, let me get the book. Anybody, look for 0.99 underneath there.
0.99?
Yeah, 0.99. Look for 0.99, tell me what it says. What z-score does that correlate to?
0.99 what?
0.99 underneath in the body
Yeah,
of,
there's two numbers after, it's 4 decimal points.
just for 0.99,
3.4, 0.999.
so as a rule, try to get as close to the number as possible. So get as close as you can to 0.99.
Okay, the smallest 0.99.
Yeah,
No, this 90. 0.99, this 18, is there something like one?
yeah, 0.99.
Yeah, so it's 2.3.
2.3?
Yeah.
That's it? Okay. So, let me see. Yeah, that. Okay. All right, see. Right. 0.99. 905. Oh, right down here, I'm looking at it. 2.3, okay, so technically that's right, but because we're not doing that of 100, all right? So as you're doing this for your homework, always look down to the established rules, okay? Because the math is not very exact on this, right? For us to be exact, it would be 2 point something, right? But because, or 2.5, or 2.33, but because they already have this established down here, right? If you go to 0.99, 0.9950 is what they actually use, okay? It correlates to 2.575, okay? Same thing if you were to go up here, and I should have just told you to do it the old fashioned way. If you subtract 0.05 from 1, it gives you 0.99.05 at the end of the day, all right? Yeah. 0.9950, yes. Okay. Either way, all right, if you see them giving you a specific significance level, come and try to find it. You either gonna have the 0.05, the 0.1, or the 0.01. Okay, and it's already down here. So if you have 0.05, you subtract that, it gives you 0.9950. You come down here or you go to the table, either one. But here already established 2.575. Okay, so 2.575 is our critical value. Okay, 2.575 is at 2.576. So it's going to vary a little bit, but just stay focused on 2.57 as your critical value, right? Based on your significance level, right, of 0.01. Right, and so now we've established our criteria. We established our critical values, right? Because this is a two-tailed test. All right. Yep, two-tailed, right? Because it's equal. Okay, because it's equal, we're gonna count both tails, both sides. Right, because below, above, right? Because we know it's equal and we're looking at two tails. Right? So now we've established that, all right? My decision rule is if the computed value of Z is not between -2.57 and +2.57, then reject the null hypothesis, okay? Because now I've established my areas of statistical significance. Here, statistically significant, here, statistically significant. Those are my tails, all right? Anything in here, not statistically significant, I'm not worried about. Now I can go back and answer my question. Excuse me. So next thing I would do is, boom, I go back, now I start using my formula. Okay? So I get in my formula and I say Z for the data set that I'm being given, right? For the information I've been given, I'm gonna plug and play in this particular formula. All right? Yes, ma'am. Right? So the mean of the sample minus the population mean divided by the population standard deviation divided by the square root of n. Okay, I have all that information. So now I'll take the 203.5, okay, because that's what it says. Right, the mean number of deaths produced last year, 50 because the family shut down for 203.5. Okay, that's what it says. And then I take my mean of the population. I mean, yeah, the mean of the population was what? What was the mean of population as given to us in the data?
Wasn't it 20?
200, right? It was 200, okay? All right. So 200, standard deviation is 16, okay? Divided by the 50, square root of 50, right? Because that's our n, right? We're trying to figure out how many weeks it is, okay? Now, we just come down here and we do the math. All right, 203 minus 200 divided by 16 divided by square root of 50 gives me 1.547, okay? And so I have my Z-score for this data that they gave me. So now I go back and where does it fall within my critical values? The parameters I already set, all right? So 1.5 falls in between negative 2.5 and positive 2.5, right? So that means that I have to accept the null. Okay? Yeah, I do not reject the null. I'm not worried about the alternative anymore, okay? So now, because it doesn't fall in the reject region, we decide to not reject the null or accept the null, whichever way you want to look at it, but knowing we say we reject the null because it gives us more flexibility for other things. All right? We did not reject the null hypothesis. We have failed to show that the population mean has changed from 200 per week. All right, now we've answered our question. Because the boss wanted to know, hey, there are mean change based on this new system that we have. And based on the data and based on the research we did, no, it hasn't changed because it did not fall outside of the critical region. It didn't fall here and here. If it had fallen between here and here, then we would have known that, yes, the machine had an impact on the production and that it was a good machine or it was useful, it was beneficial, whatever, that we bought it. And so we would say, yes, it changed the mean. Because it didn't change the mean, it fell within this region here, our critical values, all right? Then we say, no, we're gonna say that it didn't do anything. Okay, so guess what? This piece of machinery, maybe we need more time to see how it works, but right now, we didn't really need it. It didn't make a difference. Okay? Okay. All right, so it's the same thing for one tail, okay? Except with the one tail, we just go straight into using the significance level, okay, of 0.01. We don't mess around with it, okay? So we use two tail here for the last test. This time we're using one tail. And one tail, as you can see the difference, this is giving me no direction. This is giving me a direction, right? No hypothesis, less than 200 desk. Alternative, more than 200 desk, okay? You see what I'm saying? So now I have a direction because my hypothesis is that we are making less than 200 desks, you know, for regardless of this machine, the new system, whatever it is, not doing anything. My alternative is the opposite of it, all right? It is being impactful, okay? And so when we look at the one tail, right, our critical region is here, okay? Because 0.99, you know, these are different, oh, they use 0.01 for this one, okay? Oh, it's still 0.01, same thing, right? 0.99, we go to critical value, right? I want to know that. Okay, same thing, okay, not a big deal. All right, so here we just go straight to the table.
It's different now.
Yeah, it's different because the critical value changed because we're looking at one side and not two sides. So now we will just go back to the table, and this is where the 2.3 comes in that you first found, right? Because it's one-tailed. So we're not worried about that. So now we can just go straight to the table and look for 0.99, all right? And go as close as possible as we can. 0.99, which gives us 2.32. Yeah, close enough. 2.36. Oh, actually, right here. 2.33. Okay. So we're close. Okay. Yeah. So if you look, if you go as close as you can to 0.99, yeah, it'll give you 2.33. Okay. And the reason it's 2.36, it's just because they went out further with the decimals. But if you were to round up and drop that, just have two decimal places, it'd be 2.33. Okay. So when it's one tail, you don't need to subtract it from the whole thing, right? We just need to focus on, hey, it's one tail and we're looking for anything above. And so we just go to the table, look for 0.01, because we still subtract it from 1, gives us 0.99, we could look at it. Or you really want to be complicated about it, you could go, since it's 0.1, you go to the negative side of the table, okay? They're both the same. It's just that when you go to the negative side, what it's gonna give you, it's gonna give you this instead of that. The positive side is gonna give you this and not that. It's the same thing, okay? It just depends how you subtract the stuff. right? You can figure out the same thing from this, just like looking at it. If I go to 0.01 here, and I look, or 0.01. That's 0.01. 0.01, that gives me. One, 2, 9, 1, 2, 5, 1, 2. Wait a minute. That's a little too far off. Yeah, okay, 2 point, yeah. Give or take. About the same. So it's not any different, okay? But you won't really get in, like, a little more complicated problems will force you to kind of look at it on the other side and then come back to it. It gets confusing at times, just keeping track of back and forth math. But if you understand the concept, you won't ever have to do it, the math, and use the negative side, but sometimes you will, okay? Either way, so we looked at this critical value because it's one tail, the critical value changed, okay? But that's the only difference. Okay, that's the only difference. All right. All right. So now let's look at the p-value. Okay. So the p-value here, compare the p-value with the level of significance alpha. The p-value is smaller than significance level, reject HO. P-value is larger than alpha, HO is not rejected. The p-value, everybody know what p stands for? What's the p-value? What's the p stand for in p-value?
Patrick?
No, it doesn't sound for Patrick.
You want me?
Liz, I basically threw you a gift, okay? The p-value stands for probability, okay? And guess what all these things are underneath that we've been looking at? Don't forget, these are probabilities, okay? These are the probabilities. These are the chances of where if the data is gonna fall, all right? So don't forget that. They're in decimal format. That's what we know their probability, all right? They're decimal format, okay? But these are the probabilities, these are the chances. So we can use this instead of using the z-score. We can use the probability, the p-value. They're both the same. It's just different ways of looking at it, right? Different ways of saying the same thing. So let's just say, for example, the average height of the class is 6 feet, okay? And I say, Joshua, I'm gonna use you again. Joshua is 6'1" or whatever the case may be, okay? There's a couple ways I can say that. I could say Joshua is 1 standard deviation away from the mean. Joshua is 1 standard deviation above the mean. Because at 6 feet, that's the average, you're more likely within 1 standard deviation, 6'1", all right? And you can see it, right? 6 feet, 6'1", 6'2", as I put the raw data on the bell curve, right? So I can see it. I can say it that way. Or I can say that there is a 68% chance that Joshua is above the mean. Like see 6'1" is 68% chance that he's above the mean. Right? That's the probability, or 0.68, or whatever the case may be, right? It's still 1 standard deviation, because based on here, right? Remember I told you 1 standard deviation is 68%. All right. 2 standard deviations is 95%. 3 standard deviations, which is up here somewhere, out here, is 99%. Okay. All right. So if the average height was 6 feet, okay, and I have Joshua's score at 6'1", okay, where does that correlate as a z-score? Okay, I'm just gonna guess 6'1". I'm gonna say you're within 1 standard deviation, because let's just say 6'1" is here. This is 6'2". This is 5'11". This is 5'10". Okay, you get the gist, right? So now I have 3 pieces of information here. I have the raw data, I have the standard deviation, and I have the probability, all on one graph. Okay, so now I can say it in different ways. Yes, Joshua is 6'1", but he's 1 standard deviation away from the mean, right? He's 1 standard deviation above the mean, all right? Which means that he falls within the 68th percentile, or 68% of the data values within one derivation of the mean, okay? So he's gonna be falling in here somewhere. All right, or I could say, if you're 6'2", he's 2 standard deviations away. And he's 95%, his value falls within 95% of the mean, or the data values within from the mean. Okay, so there's a couple different ways to say it, but you're saying the same thing. It's kind of like transformation in chemistry. Everybody good at chemistry? No, this is looking at around the room sheet. No. So no, you don't get good at chemistry? Yes, all right, so
I didn't do
transformation,
science.
you do science?
No,
I don't understand how you could be so techie and not science.
my dad was an engineer, my husband is an engineer, so I like science, I just don't want to be graded for it.
I love to meet your parents and your husband. Sure, they're very interesting people. Your husband's an engineer. What does he do? What kind of engineer?
He builds batteries for cars.
That doesn't tell what kind of engineer he is. Electrical, mechanical,
Should be like.
I don't know which one he builds.
energy engineer. I don't know. I don't
Which he builds.
electrical, right? Yeah, that's what
He
I
works
think.
for Cummins. What kind of an engineering is it?
There's a lot of them different. They have different types of engineers there. My brother's an electrical engineer. So he's
I
a
don't
smart
know.
one.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's okay.
Why?
Yeah, as opposed to.
I don't know where it works. Isn't that,
You don't know where he worked?
no, I mean, I know where it
Oh,
works.
oh, okay,
That's
okay.
enough information.
That's enough for you, okay, hey, sometimes it's less is better, all right? Either way, you got 3 different ways of saying it, okay? Same information, just different ways of saying the information. Okay, you just have to understand how they all associate, how they correlate to each other, all right? I have my raw data, which is the most important part, because that's what I'm gonna use it to, you know, figure out what's going on with the population, right? Because I've taken all this data from this population here, you know, these samples. But I want to know, is this population have the certain characteristics? The only way I'm going to know that is to take samples. But because I can't really talk to everyone in the population, I have to rely on the samples, and whatever the sample says is, you know, the characteristics, then I have to assume that the population is probably the same, right? But I'm going to prove that also statistically by going through all this stuff. Okay, because that's the kind of how it works out. In general, this is why we use polling and different things, right? And we say, oh, they surveyed 100 people. How they gonna survey 100 people and say that this is for the whole nation? Right? Because sample comes from the population. The sample characteristics should reflect the population characteristics. Right?
Like the central limit theorem thing.
Exactly, right? The more we get, you know, bigger the what you gonna call it? The population, or the more bigger the samples, the more close we get to the normal distribution of the population. All right. The more samples we have, as we increase samples, then more and more we're gonna get to a normal distribution. Okay. All right. So using the p-value, all right, it's smaller than the significance level, reject HO, p-value larger than the significance level, HO is not rejected. We kind of already did that, all right? It's just another way to look at it. Instead of looking at the z-score, now we're gonna use the probabilities, okay? That's all it is, all right? So determine the weight of evidence against HO. If the p-value is less than 0.10, we have some evidence that HO is not true. 0.05, we have strong evidence HO is not true. 0.0, we may have very strong evidence that HO is not true. And 0.001, we have extremely strong evidence that HO is not true, right? Remember I was telling you about the levels of stringency, right?
Significance.
Significance, right? You see how the 0.1 is kind of loose, it's kind of like, it's not true. 0.05, strong evidence that is not true. 0.01, very strong. 0.001, extremely strong. Right, 0.01 is 0.999999 probability, okay, or p-value. Okay, all right. So previous examples, we 1.547 as our z-score. Okay, computed to what you call it to the next decimal place, using the Z table, find the probability of finding a Z value of 1.55 or more by 0.500 minus 0.4394 equals 0.060. Okay, so what they did here is that they just reverse engineering it, they're going backwards. So let me not say reverse engineering, because then you're gonna be mad, all right? So if we look at 1.55, right? And we go back to the table and look at this, the Z-score 1.55 and look for the probability underneath the table, it should give us 0.4. 0.4, let's see. So we go 1.55. 1.55 gives us actually, let's see here, we at half. No, is it one tail? Oh yes, one tail. So 5, yeah, okay, 5.4, 1.55. Or 6, okay. Yeah, 42.4294. 4. And you can tell this the most tedious part of this whole thing. 4, 3. 4. As soon as I can find it. 325.43. Okay. Okay. So go back to the Z table, find the probability of finding a Z value 1.55 or more. So basically, because it's one tail, we have the 1.5. Okay. No, not the 1.5, the 0.5 subtracted from the 0.4934, which is found on the Z table. Okay. And that gives us the 0.066. Okay. So we have 0.066, but our rejection area is 2.576. Okay. So this 2.576 came from our previous critical levels, right? Or Z-score. But what they gave us was not necessarily a Z-score. They gave us a Z-score, but we need to find what are the chances of this falling in this underneath this table, or underneath this curve. Okay. So 0.5, because again, one tail, don't forget there's two sides to this, right? We subtract the 0.4934, which we got attained from the 1.55, looked at the Z table, okay? And then we got the 0.4934, we subtracted that, we got the 0.0606, and because it's two-tailed, we have to make sure that we divide it, okay? So you could do it number of ways, okay? You can do it starting here with the 0.005 if you want, okay? Or you can wait and do it afterwards, right? I recommend you do it before, okay? Just take the alpha level that they gave you, 0.01, and divide that by 2, give you 0.005, and kind of you figure that out. You got 1.55 that equates to your significance level, okay? And then you subtract, but since it's two-tailed, you gotta multiply it by 2.12, and then now we go back in and we compare it and see what happened, what's going on with it, right? The p-value method, we use it sometimes, but usually they don't use it. They usually stick to Z-scores, but it's the same thing. It's not anything that's different. You just got to understand what it is, right? The p-value is the probability. So they're either going to ask you for the Z-score or give you the Z-score, and you have to figure out the probability, or they're going to give you the probability, and you got to figure out what the Z-score is off of that, okay? Typically, we'll give you the significance level, and then you have to figure out the Z-score, and then once you figure out the Z-score, you can come back in and say, boom, I got it, okay? All right. All right. Now we're gonna do, what time is it?
7:26.
7:26, okay. battery's about to die. Good thing I saved us. All right. So hypothesis testing when the population standard deviation is unknown. Okay, we just did with the known standard deviation, now we're doing with the unknown standard deviation. Same thing, it's just now we are gonna use the t-test because we don't know what the population standard deviation is. Okay, so if you know what it is, use the z-score. If you don't know what it is, use the t-distribution. Also, another indicator to use the t-distribution is that you have a small sample. Okay, anything probably, less than 100, you probably want to consider small. Okay, if it's 30 or less, for sure, it's small. Right, but typically, that's also another indicator, but the true indicator is whether or not you know what the standard deviation is. Okay. All right, so no different, right? T equals the mean of the sample minus the mean of the population divided by the standard deviation of the sample divided by the square root of the n of the sample. Okay. Now, this lowercase n designates sample n, uppercase n, population n.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, now we're about the major assets, right? So here we have McFarland Insurance Company claims the department reports the mean cost, the product claim is $60. Industry comparison showed this amount to be larger. So the company instituted some cost cutting measures. To evaluate the cost cutting measures, a random sample was taken on 26 claims processed last month, and the cost of price of each claim was recorded. At the 0.01 significance level, is it reasonable, to conclude the mean cost to process a claim is now less than $60. All right, so cost process is now less than $60. So what's it telling you? What kind of test is it? Is it one tail or two tail? One tail. Less, right? One tail, right? Less than or greater than, it's one tail. Equal, two tail. All right. So it's one tail, right? At a 0.01 significance level. So if it's at a 0.01 significance level and it's one tail, we need to go in to the chart, okay? And just look for 0.01 or 0.90. Okay, so underneath here, right? So we'll just go through real quick. Say now about the alternative hypothesis, right? So no, the mean, the population mean is greater than or equal to 60. The alternative is that the population mean is less than 60. Okay. All right, so let's the significance level, which we use already 0.01.
Greater than.
Hmm?
So if the left tail is greater than, and then the right tail
Is-
is less than. I mean,
No.
memorizing it.
No, if it's so, the way you do it is, if it opens, that means whatever it opens to is greater than.
No, I know, I'm saying,
Oh.
if it's greater than, then it's the left tail, but if it's less than, then it's the right tail.
Less than the mean?
Yes.
Yes, okay, yeah. All right, so we got that, boom, boom. All right, so now, oh, they gave you our tables, all right? So now we're gonna use our t distribution, right? So for decision rule, reject HO of T is less than negative 2.485, okay? Because we are looking at, again, less than 60, okay? So it's one tail, all right? So then now we go in and we plug in all our stuff, okay? And our T distribution is negative 1.82, right? So we first formulated our critical values, right? By going to look at our significance levels is 0.01. And don't forget, because using a T table, you have to have the significance level and the degrees of freedom. Okay? Degrees of freedom are calculated by n minus 1. All right, so if we go here, we have 0.01 as our thing, right? And 0.01, and how many we had? We had, 26 claims. So 26 minus 1 gives us our degrees of freedom. We look at where they intersect, 25 and 0.01. You see the two-tailed here, all right? But just look, it have the different levels at the top, but you just gotta find it. 0.01, 2.8, 2.485, all right? That is our critical value, okay? But because we're looking at whether or not it's less than, all right, we put a negative, we put less, because left of the mean, right? That we're looking at, okay? So negative and positive when it comes to statistics only give you direction. They don't give you value. It's only direction. If you see a negative, you know it's below the mean. You see a positive, you know it's above the mean. But it doesn't mean that it's positive or negative number, right? Statistics usually deal in absolute value. All right, so don't get wrapped around whether or not it's positive or negative. It's just about, hey, what direction is it going in? Again, back to whether or not it's one tailed or two tailed. Okay, if it's one tailed, then which direction am I going in? If it's two tailed, doesn't matter which direction I'm going in. All right, but for this instance, they wanted to know less than. All right, so we know it's negative because it's less than the mean. Okay, we know we calculated our t distribution for this set of data they've given us, and we've established our critical values. Okay, so because the critical value 1.82 or 1.81, whatever they decided, right, is less than, is greater than, all right, is greater than negative 2.485, then we know that we are going to accept the null because our critical area is back here. Okay, so once you step into critical area, whatever's to the left of it or to the right, depending on which side you're on, or what you're looking for, that is the critical area. So if it doesn't fall anywhere back here, then you automatically do not reject the null. Okay, you do not reject the null. If it fell over here, then we will reject the null. Okay, so we did all right here. Okay, so now we can go back to our question and says the test results do not allow the claim manager to include that cost cutting measures have been effective. Okay, they have not been effective. Okay. Okay, let's see what else. We kind of talked about this. All right, so real quick, if you're trying to calculate a type 2 error, right? Because what we just been doing is type 1 error calculation. Now we're trying to calculate a type 2 error. You will use this formula, and it will specifically ask you, hey, what's the probability of making a type 2 error or a beta error? Okay. Here's an example. Same thing, no different. Okay, kind of goes through the same, just as long as you follow the formula and understand what each one means, make sure you're keeping lock and step with what they're asking for, you'll be fine. Okay. I've rarely calculated type 2 error, it's just not something that we necessarily ask for. Okay. But here's an example of one. Okay. I'm not gonna kill you with it. We got through the one PowerPoint. There's another PowerPoint that we need to get through, but we're not gonna do it tonight because
So we're halfway through the class now.
we're halfway through this, particular. No, we're done for tonight. But we're halfway through the information that I wanted to kind of convey. But because we spent some time on some other stuff, because that was for one sample test. Now, if we decide to take more than one sample from the population, right? How do we calculate the information for that? Okay. Because if you have multiple samples, they each have their own mean and standard deviation. Well, how do we use that to figure out if they all came from the same population? So we have pooled variances and that kind of thing we'll get into. It's not too much harder, just 1 or 2 extra steps that you have to do because you have to take all the variances or standard deviation and kind of add them up, right? To have an aggregate standard deviation for the whole group. And then you can use it to do the calculations. All right, so we'll touch on it next week.
So how do you know if it doesn't belong if one of the samples doesn't belong by the mean? Is it because the range is really far from the means of the other ones? Or?
Yes, well, no, not necessarily. It could very well be within the, the standard deviations of the mean, but you would have to do an ANOVA to figure that out. Analysis of variance, right? Now we've been looking at the means of the population and comparing them, right? To see if there's a difference. Now we're going to look at the standard deviation itself to see, okay, this is so many standard deviations from the population. This is so many standard deviations from the population, right? But we're going to look at each sample and figure out what we call in between groups, right? So what I want to do is I want to figure out what is the variance within my sample. Okay, within the sample, the data sets I have, but then what's the variance between here and here? So I'm going to compare intra. Let's just do it this way. I'm going to compare our variance inside this class, right? As far as, height. Okay, what's the standard deviation in this class? But then I want to compare it to the standard deviation of the next class next door. Okay, so now I'm looking at the variance, I'm looking at the standard deviation, trying to compare and trying to see if I can tell whether or not we both came from the same place, the same population, right? Of CMU. Let's just say CMU is a population. The class average is 5 feet for this class. The class average over there is 4 feet. Did they come from the same place? Did they both come from CMU? I don't know, right? I have no idea until I test it. And then once I do analysis of variance, we use what we call an F statistic, all right, which we're not going to get into right now. So ANOVAs are usually stats too, all right? We'll do a quick introduction, but we're not going to really delve into that too much, okay? So don't fry your brain too much about that, all right? What we're going to do next week, which we didn't finish today, we're going to look at 2 samples based on their mean, all right? And how do we compare 2 samples to each other and then compare it to the population itself, right? We have to kind of put them together to make one, and then we can compare that one to the whole thing. Okay? All right. Any questions on Zoom World? You good?
All good.
All right. Mo, hope you
Yes,
feel
we're
better.
good, Professor.
All right, Ricky, appreciate it. We'll see you next week, okay?
Yes, sir.
All
Thank
right.
you.
I'll go pass out now.
All right, go pass out, Mo.
All right, bye guys.
All right, later.
Bye.
All right.
Way to hang in there.
Bye. Thanks, I appreciate it.
All right, later. All right, so next week we'll